Welcome to Two Deep, Hokies Under the Influence, a Sons of Saturday podcast. I'm your host, Pete B. And as always, I got my co-host Sam Jesse in the fold here. How you doing, Sam?
I am doing good. It is a lovely Tuesday night here in Suffolk, Virginia. About to talk some recruiting before you hit the NBA pod tomorrow night.
That's right. That's right. It's still June, but recruiting is really ramping up. So we felt like we wanted to get this show out to you before the NBA draft pod, where we're going to be talking some Hokies basketball. We gotta get this on the record because this has been a fun week so far. Why don't you kick us off with a cheers?
Yeah, man, my cheers is we had the first day of summer a few days ago. We are fully in the swing of it. Um, man, I'm so excited. I feel like the hype train for Virginia Tech is getting a little bit off the rails at this point. I would like somebody nationally to come in and say, I don't think they're going to be very good. That'd be really nice. So, but here's to the hype train, which is
Yeah.
something that we haven't had in quite some time. So,
Yeah,
all
I gotta
aboard the
get my
hype train for Virginia Tech.
cheers to that, man. This is not vodka. It's a straight glass of water. I was telling Sam I've been drinking too much. You might have seen me out at the concert on Sunday night. I put up a beer review. I'll talk about that beer when we do our beer break later. But Sam is drinking tonight, and so I like the cheers. Things are the hype train is on. I got to get my picture of Kirk Herbstreit back with the ice cold Coors Light to get on the
Yep.
screen when we talk about the hype train. But I did want to note before we start into this recruiting news, Mike Holmes' first position group article is up on the site. He went over our quarterbacks. So no better place to start than that. It's a good piece. I would recommend checking it out on sonsofsaturday.com. I also saw online that Davy Belfort, one of our quarterback commits, we're going to talk about a quarterback commit shortly, but one from 2024, Davy was on campus spinning it pretty good. What did you think about his like personal hype video?
He looks really good in shorts. Like he's one of those quarterbacks so far. He does have some good game film, but he is just, I mean, he can really zip it for a guy his size. You can tell he has been like highly trained as a quarterback. He's gone to a lot of these QB guru coaches. I'm excited to see what he looks like once he gets on campus and like in pads into some of these practices because he looks good in shorts. So we'll
Yeah.
see what he looks like in pads where it's important. But yeah, he can really zip it.
Yeah, he can. And there's a lot of him on the run, which maybe that's by design. Because one of the complaints that we hear online, and maybe by even some of us at Sons of Saturday, like he is on the shorter side. So those kind of guys have to move. They got to be able to move in the pocket. And it seems like that's what a lot of his training is based on. And in that video, like he clearly had a videographer there taking that video. He also seemingly had his coach, his like personal QB coach, and that's the benefit of being a son of a UFC fighter is that there is some means to have the right training and stuff that you were talking about.
Have you seen the videos where he is sparring with his dad? And his
Yeah.
dad will be like, all right, fourth quarter, what do you got? What do you got? And he's just like, if he
Yeah.
doesn't make it as a football player, you might want to give UFC a try.
I mean, that or mixed, yeah, some kind of mixed martial arts or kickboxing or something, because
Yeah.
hopefully that also means he's got that dog in him, Sam. That's what that's what we always
He
hope for
does.
with those
He
fighters.
seems tough as nails. So toughness will not be an issue for Davy Belfort.
I wouldn't think so. All right, let's get to these commits. And the first one we're going to talk about was one we talked about briefly last show, or maybe even not so briefly. The one that Coach Gouvier Winslow suggested might commit, and that was Christian Evans from Stonebridge. He made it official last Thursday, 620. And he's 6'2, 280 pounds, will probably end up on the inside of the defensive line, and 88 on 247's rankings, as we said last show, and inside the top 500 in the composite. 10 power conference offers. Really, really nice addition to the class.
Yeah, and he's even a little bit higher on three. They have him as the second best guy in the 25 class. Yeah, a lot of schools want him. ACC schools talk about Carolina, UVA, Oklahoma. So anytime you can beat out those guys for a recruit, you really like it, especially for a Nova kid. He'll only get bigger and faster as they get him in this weight program. But yeah, defensive tackle seems to be the move, and I do. Again, we've talked about this before. We're going to keep talking about it. They are going to build this team in the defensive front seven. That is where the recruiting resources are going. That is where they're landing the big fish right now. It's J.C. Price, it's Chris Marvin, it's Brent Pry that are landing these recruits. So, and I think that's a great place for Virginia Tech to be, because if you look at every team that has succeeded at a high national level and teams that even punch above their weight, they're doing it by being really good in the interior defense. So that
Yeah.
it seems to be where Virginia Tech is building, from that interior defense outwards.
For sure. And that's going to be the segue to my next one, because I'll go back to the quarterback. Because if I was going to go in commitment order, we'd move to AJ Brand. But let's talk about him in a second. Let's go to defensive end Zeke Chinwike from Green Run, another Green Run kid in the fold. He committed on Monday, yesterday, 624. And his size is just
Mhm.
incredible.
Yeah. Yeah, the dude is lanky as heck. Comes from the Green Run, which has been a good program here over the last few years in Virginia Beach. On three actually says Ocean Lakes. So I don't know if he transferred at some
Oh,
point
really?
there. Yeah, so I don't know if they're just wrong or if he transferred a couple years ago. Who knows? But Virginia Beach kid, uh, really, you're kind of rolling the dice on the frame here. 6'6", lanky guy. He'll definitely need to bulk up, but those guys don't grow on trees. You got to pick them up
No.
when you can. So you feel good about that one. Also nice to beat West Virginia out for a recruit.
Yeah. And that was the only other power offer that he had was WVU. But hey, if they're going to offer, it's nice to beat him, because he is one of the lower recruits. If you look at 247, he's the lowest in the class, to the point where he doesn't have a composite rating yet. And we were talking about that top 1,000. Naturally, once he does get a rating, I would assume it will be just outside that top 1,000. But
Yeah.
that's going to be a place to start, right?
Yeah. And I think also defensive end is one of the positions where a guy could accelerate up that recruiting, right? Right. If a guy
Definitely.
has a 4 sack game or something like that, there's a chance that they can shoot up the recruiting board. Baker's angry at something outside the
Yeah, I hear
window.
him growling. uh, yeah, we're gonna go back to Zeke right after we talk about Noah Chambers too. Linebacker Noah Chambers from the Matha committed on Sunday, 623. He is 6'2", 216, 86 on 247, and even a little bit higher than that in the composite, right at that 1,000 mark. We see, because of some rejiggering, we had some guys that we talked about last time fall out. At least one guy fall out of the top 1,000. Noah's at 1,015. I think the other gentleman was like 1,006. So they're right on that line and have the ability to move back up into that top 1,000. But I think Chambers is going to be a will, depending on how good Clatterball does. Like,
Yeah.
like he'll be a Mike or a Will. He's probably better suited for Mike. But I think he's going to be a good linebacker. His other P5s I had as Maryland, Boston College, Pitt, and Syracuse.
I don't know if he got an offer, but on three has Rutgers as well.
Okay.
But
Okay.
give me all the DeMatha kids.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of those schools you build a pipeline. It's up there with Highland Springs. It's up there with some of the Virginia Beach schools. Give me all the guys from DeMatha, because it's always about getting the next one from schools like that, right? Like, they're going to have a 4-star and they're going to have a 5-star next year. You got to be in line to get those guys.
And DeMatha is one of those schools that just has such a proven track record, as well as, you get a kid from the 757, you get a DeMatha kid. I know Caleb Spencer comes from that school. Was it Life Christian? That, maybe there's a little bit of knock on how those guys have performed in D1, but there is no such knock for DeMatha or a lot
Nope.
of the 757. So, especially
Yeah.
if they're higher rated kids. So Noah Chambers, definitely a good commitment. And Evan G. Watkins had just commented that he thinks that both Chambers and Chinwike, and I hope I'm saying that right, are guys he's very high on and could outplay
Mhm.
their recruiting ranking.
Yeah, and also this is maybe a separate project for one of our listeners out there, but private schools in Maryland have been really good to Virginia Tech, especially on the defensive side of the ball. So if the Fuller brothers, Dorian Strong, so a lot of guys
True.
from up there
Is
have
that
been
good
really good for
counsel?
Virginia. Yeah, good counsel. There's a couple DeMatha guys. There's one other, like Our Lady of something. Uh,
Mhm.
but Maryland private schools have been good to Virginia Tech over the years.
Yeah, I like it, man. So let's get to the quarterback before we kind of address the class overall. AJ Brand from Columbia, South Carolina. There is a school in Columbia. We're going to mention that later. He committed on Sunday at Bull and Bones. He he kind of took all of the mystique out of the commitment, unless he was going to do the funniest thing ever and like commit to one of our rivals or Shane Beamer while in Bull and Bones.
Oh, the home of the Saturday Shandy.
That's right. That's right. The Saturday Shandy will be available this upcoming season down there. And if you happen to be down there, like our correspondent Zach Osman, he was on location when AJ decided to make the commitment to Virginia Tech, and then Alex Arnett put out an article on Brand on the website. So I would go check out that. One of the notes from Alex's article was that Brand threw for 45 touchdowns in the air and had 17 more touchdowns on the ground. That's like over 60 touchdowns.
Yeah, that's crazy, crazy productive. Like, I don't know if I've even done that in a video game with a quarterback.
Right.
So, we talked about this in a chat. It's so hard for some of these quarterbacks to like look at their film because they're just throwing to wide open wide receivers, man. Like they're just lobbing the ball up and letting the guy run under it. That's kind of what his film is like. He's a very, very good athlete. On three even lists him as an athlete over a
Mm-hmm.
quarterback. I would not be surprised if that's how Virginia Tech sees him as well. Not a knock to his ability to play quarterback, but you look at some of the other guys in this, and Virginia Tech has brought in some of the guys in the class, Keldon Ryan, Davi Belfort, those guys. So, I mean, he's a big kid, 6'2", over 200 pounds already.
Yeah.
Again, that's if you're over 200 pounds in high school, you can get to 220 in college. Big kid, very, very athletic. So that's a really good pickup for Virginia Tech because they got him right out of Shane Beamer's backyard.
Yeah. And it's funny, when I was looking at the primary recruiter, it was Torian Gray on 247. Torian
I
Gray,
mean,
former DB at Virginia Tech and a great DB coach for us for a long time, was his primary at South Carolina. So it's nice to beat out Shane, obviously. But South Carolina and Oregon State, the only other major offers right now for AJ, but he's an 86 on 247, which is the same rating as Keldon Ryan. And AJ Brand is nearly an 87 in the composite, number 809 nationally. So comfortably inside that top 1,000. And I want to go back to that potential of playing another position a little bit later, because I do think it's a possibility. I think it's always the kind of thing where you want to give the guy a chance. And I think
mhm,
maybe that's one of the reasons he committed to Virginia. He talked about his relationship with Tyler Bowen and the opportunity to play quarterback. And so that is going to be the first stop, but it may not be the last stop. And
mhm.
we'll talk about that a little bit later. 10 guys committed in the class. Number 16 in the ACC. There's now 17 teams, so we are second to last in the ACC class rankings. But me and you talked about that's not always the best way to look at these things, especially this early in the cycle. So where do we stand in average rating per recruit? We are number 6 in the conference in average rating per recruit. The teams in front of us: Florida State, Clemson, Miami, UNC, and SMU. SMU coming off the top rope, first year in the conference.
SMU, I am pretty sure Preston Stone was a 5-star. And I think Rasheed
Really?
Rice was like a high 4-star recruit as well. So they can land some guys.
They can drop some bags with that
Yes,
150
they can.
million or whatever they raised in the last few months since joining the ACC. I already talked about guys shifting in and out of the top 1,000 and how Zeke doesn't have a rating. Um, but I think Zeke is gonna move up the board as the season rolls on here and gets a few more offers under his belt. 7 kids from Virginia in the class, 2 quarterbacks, 2 defensive linemen, 2 linebackers, and 2 DBs. If you go to the full breakdown, and 1 of a few other positions. What are your thoughts on the class as a whole right now, Sam?
You know, I it's tough because I think there are more to come. I think soon you're going to see Tech get a couple more commits. I would say it is good because they're getting all players who I think have the ability to grow into Virginia Tech football players, but they
Yep.
haven't gotten that splash commit yet. Will that splash commit come? Maybe, but they're going to be in a position where they're going to need to bring in probably 15 transfer portal guys in the offseason after this year. I mean, if you look at how many guys we're losing across the board, you don't know which guys are going to transfer. You don't know which guys are going to go pro early. If you have a good season, that's one of the things that comes from having a good season. So,
That's
I
true.
think you don't want to sign 22, 23 high school guys when you know that you're going to need to bring in some guys from the transfer portal. So I don't think Tech is having a great recruiting class right now. I think, especially if you look at the top 10 in the state, South Carolina and Clemson are just dominating right now. How many of those guys stay there? That's a question. But, overall, solid. They're picking up solid guys. They're going to continue to do that. So good, not great. Not our worst effort, but more to come.
Yeah, and it would be really nice if South Carolina kind of fell on their face early and often in this season. And at the same time, we go 4-0. Like those
Mhm.
kind of things can really swing a class. When you look at the top in the state that some have gone to South Carolina, even though we just got AJ to come the other way, that would be really good for us, for South Carolina to kind of have a really bad year. Bad enough for Shane to get fired, that would take a lot. But
Yeah, it would take
never,
quite a bit.
nevertheless, I did want to ask you. You said the thing about the numbers and how many portal guys and how many. What do you think the number is going to end up at for high school recruits in this class? Like, and I'm not trying to nail you
I would
down,
say
just like a ballpark.
like 17, 18 feels right. Uh,
See, that seems just a little low for
it's
me.
low. It's low, but like, would you rather bring in 25 guys? Like, do you really want them to sign a guy who we know isn't going to do much? Like, I think that's the question
No, no,
that
and
they're
I'm not.
having to. There's a little gamesmanship going on here with recruiting now.
Yeah. So, do I want to sign Mr. 1300 in the country, or do I want to leave a spot open for a portal? Well, I would like to leave a spot open for a portal. However, if you can snatch a 4-star, then you're going to take that over a portal guy, because that's the kind of program we're going to have to be. We're going to have to
Mhm.
be a developmental program. I don't know if Tech is ever going to have a 15 portal class. Like I mean I'm not sure we're built for that financially, NIL
I don't
wise.
know. Me and a lot's going to be off the
I
payroll after
think
this year.
things are going
So,
to change. Things are going to change a lot. So I could be end up eating my words, but like we
Mhm.
haven't gotten close to that
Yeah.
like mid-teens number yet in the portal. Maybe it's coming if we have more success. But I think we also are a school that we're not going to be reloading in the portal like a Bama and Ohio State. Like those days of like, oh, they ratchet up for a big year. Those are kind of gone for the top schools. Like they basically have to go all in almost every year to have a nearly championship season, and they also have the backstop of the high school guys to do it. For us, we are still going to have to play that game like, all right, if we play our cards right, develop right, go grab a few portal things to fill holes, this is our year, or this is our year. And that's what we're kind of doing for 2024, right?
Yeah, and I think if I'm looking at just some of the guys who have visited Blacks, and I'm not a recruiting expert by any means, but
Actually, hold that thought, Sam. Let's do a quick commercial break before we go to some other prospects that may end up
okay.
committing to the Hokies. Okay, so the 2D Hokies Under the Influence podcast is brought to you by Roback. I'm wearing one of their hoodies right now. I'm kind of blending into the background here, but this hoodie is so comfortable. I've got the heathered blue on, and it's the performance activewear designed for those who crave activity. They got the polos. The Commonwealth is in stock. I would definitely recommend you guys get one for maybe Nashville. Let's not go and talk about the whiteout right now, because that sparked a whole debate
I
on
will I will just
247.
say, hand up, that was all me. Every part of that was me. It stems from Comfort Colors having terrible t-shirt colors, but
The
that's
maroon
that's on
comfort
me.
colors
That's on me.
isn't a great maroon. And it's
It's
not on you.
terrible.
Like I didn't think it was a bad idea. And I
I
still
thought it
don't
was a
think it's
great
a
idea.
terrible idea. I also think you can wear whatever you want to the game. The whiteout
You
is
can
just merely a suggestion. We're trying to sell some shirts, trying to create a little community aspect of like, hey, we're going down there, we're gonna have some fun. This is the official t-shirt of the weekend, all that kind of stuff. It's not that serious. But I think it'll be nice to be in white for part of the day or all of the days. But if you want to wear maroon, you want to wear orange, I'm all for it. I may be in orange or maroon one of those days. So
As long as it's not black and gold,
that's right.
I'm
That's
okay
right.
with it.
And there is maroon on that white shirt. Our
There
Nash Bash
is
t-shirts, which are for
down
sale
to the
on Southwest Virginia shop.com.
down to
SWVA
the
shop.com.
hex code. The Virginia Tech colors are on that shirt.
But Roback, back to Roback. You could grab yourself one of those polos, which would keep you nice and cool. They've got all different styles. Use code 2DVT for 20% off your order. Load up your cart. Grab something for your wife. Get one of those. They have these nice dresses. My wife is begging me to go on there and grab those, like, kind of like a tennis dress. She's all about the Roback. So they got joggers, quarter zips, all the good stuff. Hit them up, 2DVT for 20% off that order. Roback Crave Activity. For now, Sam, I need to know what you are drinking.
Well, I promised the people I'd be going into the summer beers, and I'm there right now. This is from another Three Notched, which I feel like I've done a lot. I'm going to spread my wings a little bit, but I just picked this up tonight. It's one of my favorites from them, the Watermelon Goza. It
Ooh.
is a classic. It is fresh. It is sour. It is tart. It's a little bit sticky sweet at some points, but you can see it's this nice, like, pinkish amber color, really light. Tastes great. You can knock back a few of them easy. They actually, and I don't know if they still do, but for years they had it on tap at Hokie House in Blacksburg, and it was one of my go-tos there. So,
Who makes
uh,
it?
Three notched
Three notch. It's
from
another
Charlottesville.
three
Yep,
notch. Nice.
yep. It's 5.1% alcohol, 8 IBUs. Uh, just it literally tastes like biting into a watermelon.
It
So
looks like
I highly
watermelon
recommend.
juice in the glass.
Mhm.
Like, it just looks like you kind of like strained the juice out of a watermelon and put it in that puppy.
Yep, it's a really good one if you like the goats.
Nice. I had the Weekend Warrior over the weekend, and I had that one on the show. One, it's a beautiful can, and if you go to our YouTube short or our Instagram, you can see the can. It's got like this really funky artwork, and that's something Double Nickel, which is the brewery, does with a lot of their cans. They have really cool artwork on their cans, and it's a South Jersey brewery in Pennsauken, and I really like their stuff. I don't know how like it's pretty regional at this point. In Philly, you can definitely get it. A little bit south of there, a little bit east and west of there, you can definitely get it. But I really like it. And that Weekend Warrior, if you're up there, if you're seeing some summer concerts, it's kind of like it's almost like a session hazy pale ale. It's not an IPA, it's a pale, but it almost drinks like a light IPA. And so I loved it. But anyway, yeah, that was called the Weekend Warrior, which is also a fantastic name. But that's going to do it for the beer break. I wanted to go into some of those other prospects that we chatted, or we're gonna that we've talked about on the message boards and on various threads. There are some guys that are going to be committing this week that we have our eye on. And I'll let you. Do you want to mention
So
some, or do you want me to start?
let's start with we'll start with Jeff Overton, running
Okay.
back out of Woodbridge, Virginia, Freedom High School. So another really good program up there. Um, he has a few big offers: Maryland, South Carolina, Virginia, the usual suspects for this area. Good running back. I know Ohio State was really high on him for a while and chased after him. Kind of a smaller, like, I almost like Malachi Thomas out of high school kind of back. Like, not a big bruiser, but pretty
He's got
good
more
player.
weight on him than Malachi.
Got more than, yeah, Malachi was, that's maybe bad because Malachi was pretty scrawny coming in. He's more like Malachi, like end of freshman year ish.
Yeah, maybe
Once
even
he hit the
now.
weight
Yeah,
room a
because he's
little bit. Yeah.
192, 5'10", 192 is what he's listed at. That's
I
not
don't know if
bad.
he's 190. I don't know if he's 190. I don't I'm looking at pictures of this kid. He's not 190. But
Okay.
yeah, I think really good potential with this guy. I do think they like to be in a 2, maybe 3 running back rotation is where this offensive staff has liked to sit. So that means you need to have 2 or 3 pretty good running backs that you can run out there. So getting some of these big target running backs is a lot like how they use defensive tackles. You need to be able to rotate those guys. I think they feel good about Overton. You can go to the next one.
Okay. Yeah. No,
There's a
Overton is definitely someone a lot of people are talking about, and and 86 on 247. He's choosing to commit on Friday, this upcoming Friday. So keep your eyes peeled for that. I feel all right. I don't know what's going to happen. You know, there's some good vibes, and he's a top 707 nationally. It would be a nice get. It would be a really nice get to get Overton in the fold. Nathaniel Wright, offensive lineman from Woodbridge. This is a kid that's going to commit on Thursday. That's what he's announced on his Twitter. 3 p.m. If you're looking to find out, find him on Twitter. He's on there. And 3 p.m. on Thursday, you should be able to find out where he's going. 6'5", 275. Like I said, from Woodbridge. Another 86 on 247. So would be another solid pickup for us. A Duke offer, a Pitt offer, a Wake offer. Maybe a little bit lower in the composite than his 247 score, but I always like when the 247 scores a little bit better.
Yeah, I think that's still the leader of the pack in terms of analysis from a recruiting service.
And so the last one I had to keep an eye on for this week was Malik Washington, quarterback from Archbishop Spalding. He's a 4-star. Definitely someone people have talked a lot about. You can see his crystal balls. A lot of them say Maryland, but on the graphic that came out today, we were in his Final Four with Maryland, Syracuse, and UCF. And so maybe I don't feel as hot about Malik Washington committing, but if he did, that would be cool. And it would lend some credence to the idea that maybe AJ Brand would end up where he started his career, because AJ was a wide receiver at his high school before he became the quarterback. Maybe he'd be an athlete somewhere else, but it would be fascinating if Malik did decide to pick the Hokies.
Yeah, and actually did really well to Elite 11 apparently last week, which is a big quarterback camp that is put on. I feel like that one's Maryland, but again, he's a pretty talented guy. So if Maryland does land him, that'll be a really good one for the Terps. A couple others I had to look out for. Cole Woodson, younger brother of Caleb Woodson. He's a guy that Virginia Tech is obviously highly in the running for. Same as Caleb, out of Haymarket, Virginia, Battlefield High School, has some big ACC offers. Not a super highly rated guy, but top 20 for 247 in the state of Virginia. Linebacker, safety, hybrid type player is probably where you'll see him. So very similar to his brother. So like to keep the family pipeline going. And then I'm going to mention it every podcast until we land him, Micah Matthews. I don't think I've wanted to recruit this bad in quite some time.
That's interesting. Now, so if you think back, maybe go like 10 years, because 10 years ago, you were a very young man, but like, is there any guy that you really, really wanted that you were just devastated when they chose another school?
I mean, yeah, who was that kid out of Texas? The quarterback?
Oh,
the 5-star? Demetrius
not
Davis.
Oh, yeah, him?
Yeah. Yeah. That was
Well, he was
we were
ours.
bad.
He did commit to us at one point, right?
Yeah.
1,000% committed. Was that him? I forget. That there was a lot of commitments and decommitments. Oh, that was Cam Kelly, I think, was 1,000%.
Cam Kelly. Yeah. That was a dark time in Virginia Tech recruiting. Yeah. So I think there are certain players that you really want. I think for me, just as a Tech baseball fan as well, I think having a 2-sport athlete would be really cool.
Yeah.
You don't see a lot of them anymore. And he's a legitimate 2-sport athlete. So I mean,
and you think that if he came to
UVA,
if he came to Tech though, you think he's going to play on the baseball team?
I think he would. Yeah. I think they would have him on both rosters. You obviously, you let it play out. We saw like the Cole Beck situation. Track and field, I think, is a little bit different. But if you look at his recruit,
the potential for injury is much lower than I feel like a regular, I don't want to call it a regular sport, but like, I don't know. I mean,
we've had Jeff,
you can pull a hammy
play basketball.
That's true. And, Jameis Winston famously pitched for Florida State. I mean, it still happens with those really, really elite guys. It's just much more rare in this day and age.
Right. Right. And I also think this is a guy he's consensus top 10. Some have him at top 5 in the state, top 120 in the nation consensus. Like, this is a big time athlete. And these are the kind of guys who part of the reason Brent Pry was brought to Virginia Tech was to land these big fish. It wasn't to
Mhm.
land every gritty 3-star. Like, this is one of the reasons he was hired at Virginia Tech was because his recruiting prowess when he was at Penn State. These are the kind of guys that you need to land if you want to compete with Penn State's, right? So
Yeah.
I do think it's between Virginia and Virginia Tech for this one.
Where does Michael
We'll
Matthews
see.
go to school?
Turner Ashby.
Okay.
It's not one of the powerhouse Nova schools. It's in Bridgewater
Okay.
area. Hmm.
One of the misses that we didn't get that I thought would have really helped our program at the time that I wouldn't say crushed, but it was one of the ones I was like, God damn it. Derek Noddy. I
Yep.
thought we were gonna get him for a minute. I think a lot of people did. I think it was a decision that came down the wire. He visited us pretty late, and he chose to go to Florida State. Ended up playing in the NFL for a while with the Chiefs. I think. Good player that I remember being disappointed that we couldn't put. There's so many that I
Especially
could
from
bring up. That one just sticks out to me.
I think there was like a 4 or 5 year span where the 757 had like a top 20 national recruit every year. And it was like Florida State and Clemson just kept taking them. Like Josh
Yeah.
Sweat was in that era.
Oh,
And
Josh Sweat. Yeah, that
it was
was.
like, man, like that's a guy who you want so bad. But when the
And we
big boys
felt like we
no,
had a shot with him early. And then he tore up his knee, and that it was serious. But and he because at the time he was the number one recruit in the country, so it did
mhm.
always feel a little bit like a long shot that we were ever going to get him. But his family, I think, really liked Tech. I thought we had a shot. He ended up at Florida State also, and he's on the Eagles. I mean, he's had a really nice NFL career.
The kid out of Roanoke, I think that is if we're talking about like the Brent Pry era, and I'm blanking on names for these guys. Committed to Georgia, linebacker, Salem High
Oh,
School. I know all of
yeah,
that, but I don't know his name.
Chris Cole, right? Like,
Chris Cole,
wasn't
the
that?
helicopter guy.
Yeah,
That's
helicopter guy.
just like it's just proof that like you can have great recruiters, you can pull out all the stops, you can have good facilities. You have to have trophies in the trophy case, man. You got to have trophies in the trophy
Well,
case to
Georgia's
get some of
Georgia,
these guys.
exactly. Like,
Georgia's
and
Georgia, Florida State's Florida State,
isn't
Clemson's
there a
Clemson.
super? I'm sorry for interrupting you. Isn't there a
No,
super
no.
high Salem guy this year that I'm again, I follow recruiting. We're obviously talking about recruiting here, but pulling all these kids' names when you know they might never play for your school, it's just something I'm never going to be perfect at. Salem has had some really good kids lately, and I think
Very
they
good
got
program.
a big one this year as well. That the helicopter may still have a chance to make an impact.
Yeah, I mean,
And also, I
maybe
think the team we played the team they played that night when the helicopter landed also has a kid that the helicopter might have an effect on.
yeah, it's Jalen Gilchrist
Okay.
is the
Yeah.
kid out of Salem. No, that's Salem, Virginia Beach. Wrong
Oh,
Salem.
oh, oh, oh.
My
Gotcha.
mistake. Yeah, we're off the
Um,
rails now, though.
Yeah,
That's
I know. We're kind of getting off, but yeah, if you guys out there have anyone that we missed on as far as old recruits that you just thought we were going to get and it didn't work out and they went to another school, put them in the comments on YouTube. That would be interesting. Do you remember that the story about Jaden Blue? It was a linebacker that ended up playing for Miami. He was basically supposed to go to Tech or maybe even committed to Tech, and on signing day chose Miami. And there's a story about one of our coaches like just going off about it, maybe even to
man.
him.
I can.
And it was kind of a famous message board story. And this was a while back, so I don't feel that weird about talking about it. But that was one that sticks in my mind.
I think also, and this is from back in my days at Key Play. I covered recruiting, and you'd be surprised how many players that are commit. Again, social media commitments mean nothing, but
Are you there?
yeah, I'm back. Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah. I think it might be on my end, but go ahead.
Oh, okay. Social media commits don't mean anything. They're not really recognized by the schools. They're not recognized by the NCAA. They're really kind of pointless. But uh I've seen a few times where we have gotten a commit like that, and they've been all in the boat. And then either, um, they committed without even really doing any research on Virginia Tech or visiting the school, or they've visited the school and they really just went to the stadium. Guys who academically did not get in, which is still a thing. I promise you, you have to still get into the school. Um, it happens. Like Tech has, I remember it was almost like in a month span, Tech had 2 decommitments, and both of the reasons was the university said, "Hey, we this is not not going to work out." Those things happen. So have
And
fun
I
with
think
it,
for yeah,
but
exactly. I think there's
wait till they
some
get to Blacksburg.
yeah, there's some don't we have a higher math like equivalency that than some other schools that you need to get to? Not that I think it's like Stanford or anything, but I think we
From
have like
what from what I have been told about the process is they will they'll get you in if there's like hope for you to do well. They don't
mhm,
and they're not gonna I mean, the reality is like the lower ranked kid who is on the fence is going to get pushed aside for the higher ranked kid that's on the fence. Like that's how life works,
of course.
unfortunately. Um, but I think Virginia Tech does have a kind of a line of demarcation where it's like, okay, if you're not going to make it 4 years in this university, you can't help the football team, right?
Yeah.
So, um,
One of the all right, so let's just finish up with the thought of like who if we get a few that jump in the boat this week, like you look at our ranking on ACC in the ACC, I said it was 16th in terms of the class ranking. If we get just like 2 more, 3 or 4 more, like we're gonna move to 8. Like it could move very quickly depending on what those kids come in at in the rankings. We're not far away. Like that 16 to 8 is like it could happen real quick. And our average, like I said, is still sixth best in the conference. It's a decent class.
mhm.
No, we don't have Clatterball's a very solid recruit. He's a 4-star, right, in the composite.
Yep.
And so it's a good player to have. We need some more. We need a
Mhm.
couple more flagship players. Maybe on a flagship Friday. We'll get one of them coming up in not too long here. But I did have just a note about women's basketball, and then we can kind of give our closing thoughts on the night. Amani Jenkins committed to Coach Duffy and the women uh, this past weekend, and she's a 92 on ESPN's service, Hoop Girls, number 82
Oop
nationally.
girls.
Hoop Girls is just the best name. And then she's a 91 on 247's service, but a top 100 woman who was committed to Coach Duffy prior to her, you know, coming to Virginia Tech to be the coach. So that's a really nice pickup. And we didn't even mention back in May when Kate Sears committed to play for Coach Duffy as well in the 2025 class, another 92. So we've already got 2 top 100 girls committed for the 2025 class, which is really nice.
Yeah, Coach Duffy's doing work, doing a really good job in the recruiting trail, retaining some of the relationships that she had when she was at Marquette. I think Tech feels like they're in a good position right here. All things considered, maybe a lot better than people thought. So will be interesting to see. I think a lot of these girls will have to play early in their career. So we'll be interesting to see how the team performs this year and if they can, continue this recruiting momentum because right now they're hanging tough with the big teams in the ACC recruiting wise.
I'm excited about women's basketball coming back. I know we're going to get to football, but it's nice just to like with the changes happening with the men's team, the changes happening with the women's team, just that alone is makes it interesting as to what we're going to see next season. And yeah, it stinks to lose a Final Four coach in Kenny Brooks. We've been over it plenty of times, but what Coach Duffy has done has me excited. And some of the stuff we're going to talk about tomorrow night because we're going to be talking a lot of basketball. We're going to be talking Wiz at number 2. Robert Irby's going to join the show. He's a Hornets guy, and I know we have a lot of Hornets fan listeners. We're going to talk about Hornets at number 6, and what these teams like in their prospects, and what guys on Virginia Tech's current roster that may be an NBA prospect one day.
Maybe,
Maybe.
maybe.
You never we might have an NBA guy on the roster right now. That's something I'm going to talk to Ed about. I think we're going to have Ed on the show. Maybe and we're going to obviously have my 2 buddies. And so tomorrow night when we kick off I think Sam's going to start on the show. He's going to meet my friends. We're going to chat a little bit, talk about what the Wiz might do at number 2. We're going to get into some Hokies talk when we add Ed and Irby later. It's going to be fun. Actually, one of the first Sons of Saturday shows I ever did was with Ed and Robert Irby, and we did a memory lane game rewind of the Ball on the Rim UVA game. And that was my first introduction. I had never met either of those guys, and we're like on a podcast talking about a classic Virginia Tech basketball game.
Oh
So I'm
gosh, what
excited
a
to talk some VT hoops with them tomorrow.
yeah, and Robert Irby and one of our other contributors who was on Locks of Saturday with me, Brett Smith, they're going to be doing some stuff on the website this fall too. So make sure you're
Oh,
tuning
sweet.
into the podcast as well as the website. We are going to be really ramping that up. I dropped the 20 under the radar games you need to watch this fall. We'll continue to have position reports, ACC reports, power rankings, all that stuff is going to come. So it's going to be a really busy 2 months, Pete.
Yeah, man. I know. And we're almost to July. Like this show, the NBA show is going to be our last one in June, and there ain't going to be much basketball talk after that. Like it's going to be a lot of football until we get to August. What is it? Is it the 2nd? Is our games on the 2nd, end of August? And then we play Vanderbilt on 9/2.
We yeah. No. We play 31st.
Is it the
August
31st?
31st.
Okay.
Yeah.
I might be mixing up last year's dates, but
Hope you
yeah,
didn't screw that flight up.
no, I'm flying in on the right time. I got the hotel. I've got my tickets to the Sons of Saturday party on Friday night. It's gonna be a blast, dude. Anyway, until next time when we're gonna be talking some NBA, you're gonna see us in about 24 hours. Go Hokies.
Go Hokies.